Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We have the privilege here to today be joined by Karina Duffy, who is the Director of HubSpot Training at Impact, an American agency. And during this webinar, Karina is going to be taking us through some of the key lessons on how you can get the most out of your marketing and sales technology. And we'll then be going through questions at the end of the webinar. So yeah, really excited to have you here. Karina, over to you.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. Hey, everybody. My name is Karina Duffy. I am the Director of HubSpot Training at Impact. If you're not familiar with Impact, we are a digital sales and marketing company who really are focused around making our clients the best educators or the leading voice in their space. So if you've heard about a book called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, he's one of the partners here at Impact. And the whole premise of They Ask You Answer is taking ownership of inbound marketing and selling in-house in your organization. And so Impact does a combination of training and consulting around things like content marketing, video marketing, paid advertising, really empowering our clients to take ownership of their marketing and sales in-house. And what that means for me as the Director of HubSpot Training is I get to lead a team of HubSpot certified trainers who work with clients every day to literally get the most out of HubSpot. That's what we exist to do, from just getting started with the tools and learning how to use them to companies and teams who have been using them for a long time and feel like they're just not getting a whole lot out of them. So I'll have a slide at the end of the presentation here if you want to learn more about me or get in touch. I have my contact information there. But until then, we will get going here. So when I was a kid, I loved the X Games. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the X Games, but they look something like this. They are extreme sports, and I loved the X Games. And at some point, I thought to myself, I want to do that. I want to be that person. And I had one problem. I didn't have any rollerblades. So I begged my parents, can I please get a pair of rollerblades? Can you please get me a pair of rollerblades? And finally, they caved and they bought me a really nice, expensive pair of rollerblades. They looked exactly like this. Now, don't be impressed. This is not me in this picture, but these are the rollerblades that I bought. I never quite got this far. But I was so excited. I was so excited. I was going to do what those people on TV were doing. And I remember when I first got them, I got to the top of my parents' driveway and I strapped on the skates for the first time. And they felt kind of awkward. They felt clunkier than I thought they were going to. They were kind of heavy, but I didn't let that deter me. So I put them on and I decided, I don't have a skate park. I didn't have any fancy ramps like the person in this picture, but I decided that, you know what? I'll use the curb across the street from my parents' house. It's just a nice little curved curb that I could kind of fly off of. And so I started flying down my parents' driveway. I launched myself off the curb, and in my head, I was going to do that really cool trick. What I actually did was just kind of flailed into my neighbor's yard and totally wiped out. And I was a little bit discouraged, of course, but I kept going, and eventually I got a ramp and I would, go down the driveway and launch myself off, but it just never really felt like I thought it was going to. I didn't know how to do the things that I wanted to do. And eventually I started just using the rollerblades to kind of just skate around my neighborhood and maybe play roller hockey with my neighbors. And eventually, my skates started just collecting dust in my parents' garage and eventually my parents' attic. And at some point, my parents started asking the question, why did we pay for these? Why did we spend our money on these skates that you never really used for what they were intended for? And you see, just like a lot of children's sporting equipment or other toys get purchased and never used for what they were intended for, I think we can all resonate as kids, or if we have kids, what that's like. We're just as guilty as adults. 37% of all purchased software in 2017 was never used. And that means that even more of that was either never used or very seldom used, or really just used for skating around the neighborhood instead of what it was originally intended for. And these are statistics from 2017, and I can only imagine that it's gotten worse in the last 2 years or so. And that's not all. On top of that, the average enterprise uses 91 different marketing cloud services. And that was also in 2017, also probably worse in 2019 going into 2020. So we're not just using the tools that we have, but we're buying a whole lot of them. I tried thinking about how many Impact uses, and we're a company of about 65, and I stopped at about 12 because my head was spinning of all the different marketing services that we use on a daily or weekly basis. And the problem is that a lot of times we get to the point where we start asking that same question my parents did about my rollerblades. Am I wasting my money on this? Why are we spending money every month on this tool? Or maybe it's not us that's asking. Maybe it's not me as a marketer or a salesperson, but maybe it's our bosses, our CFOs, and our CEOs. And this is really what I get to walk people through every day as a HubSpot certified trainer and as the director of HubSpot training. I'm working with people who are asking the question, am I wasting my money on HubSpot? Or how do I not waste my money on HubSpot? So I want to help all of you do that today, whether it's HubSpot or any other major marketing or sales tool that you're spending your money on every month, because this isn't going to be specific to using HubSpot. Really, these things span across all of the tools and the technologies that we're using to run our business. So first, let me paint the picture of where I think the root of this issue comes from. It's what I like to call sales utopia. Now, sales utopia is a term that I made up, and it's where everything is sunshine, waterfalls, and bubblegum. It's where the case studies are pristine, the examples are mouth-watering. There's this picture painted for us of these tools and softwares in the perfect scenario, the perfect company using the tool in the perfect way, and we never really see anything in between. And sales and salespeople as a whole are really good at painting this beautiful picture, this ideal use case, the tool at its peak potential. And what happens is we start to drink the Kool-Aid, like I did as a kid watching the X Games on TV. We say, I want that. I want to do what those people are doing. I want to do what those people on TV are doing. I'll use HubSpot as an example today, but you can take the word HubSpot and replace it with whatever tool or technology you may be using, and it's probably applicable to multiple tools that you're using at your organization. But if we look at HubSpot, when you go to HubSpot's website and you start to look at their platform, their core platform is a marketing automation platform, you're going to see value propositions like this one. It's everything you need to launch effective marketing campaigns that make people interested in your business and happy to be your customer. I want that. I'm going to swipe my credit card to get that. That's an amazing proposition. Who doesn't want that? And when you get into the sales process, they're going to show you all these companies who have implemented this flawlessly, who have gotten everything they need to launch their marketing campaigns and make people interested in their business and happy to be their customers. And they're going to paint that picture for you. And we're going to get so excited because we think that all we have to do is buy the software to do that. We're going to do what those people on TV are doing, but we don't think about all the things that have to happen in the in-between for all of that to really come to fruition. So all this really sounds great until, we figuratively put on the skates and we realize maybe this is a lot clunkier than we thought it was going to be. Maybe it doesn't exactly function like we thought it would. And we realize that we're not really in sales utopia anymore. We've entered this dreary land that I like to call the implementation swamp. We swipe the credit card, we get into the tool for the first time, and we have these experiences of, oh man, I got to set all of this stuff up. I don't know how to do some of these technical setup pieces. I don't know where to start. And each one of these things starts to slow us down. With HubSpot, specifically, when you first start on the marketing tools, they break everything down setup-wise for you with this really nice-looking project. They really walk you through things, and it's really awesome. They give you a crazy amount of resources to help you get set up. But a lot of times you start going through it, and you look at each thing and realize, oh, I have to set up a subdomain. I need to go into my DNS settings. I don't even know what DNS is. I'm going to have to get my IT team involved. I'm going to have to put in a ticket. They take weeks to get back to me. Like, this is going to take forever. And each one of these things start to slow us down. We start to lose that momentum and that excitement that we had in Sales Utopia, and maybe start to get a little bit disillusioned about all of it. And we kind of start to get stuck in the mud. Or maybe we get through the initial implementation. We don't have a problem with technical setup. We know about DNS settings. We know about subdomains. It's fine. We get all of that set up. But we start using the tools, and 3 years down the line, we look at something like our call to action tool and realize that we have 600 calls to action in our tool that we've used on our site, and none of them are actually doing anything. We're using the tool, but it's not performing like we want it to. And we ask that question, am I wasting my money on this tool? I've had so many people say to me, I feel like I'm flushing money down the toilet every month on HubSpot or on other tools that they're using, but they're not really seeing any value in. And we could look at the sales process and blame the salespeople. Well, you're just telling me this rose-colored picture of what this tool does, but you're not really explaining to me the work. And honestly, I don't fault salespeople. I think it's the job of a salesperson to show us the potential of these tools, to show us where we could get with these tools. I think the problem is with our own mindset when we're looking at the tools, when we're deciding whether to buy them. And when we decide to buy them, we think, if I buy this platform, everything will change for my team and my organization. All I have to do is buy the thing. And all these problems that we have right now are marketing problems, our marketing and sales alignment problems. They're all going to go away. And we don't think about the trudging that's going to have to happen to really get value from a tool. And you may be thinking, great, now Karina is going to give me a hack for how to avoid the implementation swamp altogether. And sadly, the implementation swamp isn't avoidable. I couldn't have just strapped on my skates and suddenly been an X Games athlete. There's a lot of work that has to go on in between to get us from the implementation swamp to real world success that's meaningful to our team and our business. But don't worry, all hope is not lost. Like I said, I walk through this swamp with people every day, and yes, it's a lot of work, but I'm going to give you 4 strategies for getting through the implementation swamp and getting to real world success. This might not necessarily mean case study for HubSpot or case study for Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using success, but success that's meaningful for your business, for your team, and your organization. So we're going to start with educating and engaging. Then we're going to think outside of the tool. We're going to talk about asking for help. And lastly, we're going to talk about ownership. Now, when I talk about educate and engage, most major tools that you start with are going to have some kind of onboarding. They're going to have some kind of initial training, kind of like what we looked at with HubSpot a minute ago, where they give you a getting started project. HubSpot specifically has all kinds of resources and documentation about how to use the tool, but I want to think even beyond just that standard training and onboarding. We really need to take educating ourselves seriously on the tools. Tools are complex, especially if we're talking about major marketing and sales tools. There's a lot to them, and it's really going to be impossible to know every single little thing about an individual tool, which means we can't just educate ourselves in a silo. We can't just sit there and read through documentation and think that we're going to become experts in using a tool just from that. We need to start engaging with the greater community. And most of these tools, amazingly, have communities built around them, whether the companies themselves have created communities or whether users have created communities themselves. If we continue to use HubSpot as an example, HubSpot has the Academy, which has, I think, almost 20 different certifications now in different methodologies, different areas of the tool, where you can really get up to speed quickly on how to use the tools. But not just their own resources, HubSpot has a community forum where you can submit feature requests and ideas. You can submit issues that you're having and questions, and other users will respond. This is, I would say, as I was learning HubSpot and becoming a HubSpot trainer, was one of the best ways that I was able to become what people call a HubSpot expert. Getting into looking at all of the different ways that people use the tools. And when you go into community forums, you're able to find hacks of people who say, well, you can't do that in the tools, but I've set up this workaround to do this. And you get all of these different ideas from engaging in the user community. The last thing you'll see here is a HubSpot user Slack community. There's a community of HubSpot users right now that's about 150 people that are power users that have Slack threads for all of the different platforms within HubSpot, We ask questions to each other, we troubleshoot with each other, we share wins that we have together, and it's an amazing way for us to continue to start using the tools in new ways and to kind of sharpen our skills with the tools. And so whether you're using HubSpot or a different tool, you'll likely be able to find communities on Facebook and on LinkedIn, Slack groups, or communities that these companies have set up themselves that you can engage in. And it's really important to stay active there if you really want to feel like you're getting the most, you really want to get the most out of these tools that you're paying for every month. So once you've got your education mindset there, you're engaging in the community that's around this tool, we need to take a step back and start thinking outside of the tool. I find it funny when people come to me or come to Impact who feel like they're wasting money on HubSpot, and they say those things like, I feel like I'm flushing my money down the toilet every month, or, I just feel like I'm not getting anything out of the tools. And I ask them, what's your marketing strategy for 2019? What are your goals and objectives for the year? And they say things like, oh, well, we don't really have any. I don't have a lot to say to that because the tool isn't the thing. The software isn't what's going to make you successful. Purchasing HubSpot won't make you inherently a great inbound marketer. You have to have goals and strategies that exist outside of the tool that you then implement in the tool. You use the tools to execute. And this looks a lot of different ways, depending on what industry you're in, what company you work for, what size you are. There's a lot of different ways that you can create goals and marketing strategies. But what's important is that you're not expecting that if I just go into HubSpot and I set up a bunch of emails and start sending them out, that's what's going to make me successful. I need to think strategically beyond the tool itself to, what am I really trying to do? What are my goals with this campaign? What is going to bring my customers delight? Thinking through the inbound methodology and then saying, okay, I know that as an organization, we need to do these things. Here's how I'm going to execute it with the tools that we have. A couple examples are doing things like creating lead nurturing strategies, or if you've been using the tools for a long time and you don't feel like you're getting a lot out of them, cleanup strategies for getting things organized and looking at performance. If you're using website tools, things like sitemaps and making sure that people can navigate your site properly. These are all things that you're going to have to get outside of the tools for to really be able to get the most out of the tools themselves. I'm supposedly a HubSpot expert. That's what people say. And yet, I run into situations and issues every day that I don't know the answer to, which is why I've created this mantra, and the longer that I've done this, the more that it's become just part of who I am and what I do at Impact, is the mantra, leave no question unanswered. When we're implementing a tool like HubSpot or another CRM or marketing and sales tool, we get stuck in the mud because we may think that a tool could do something and realize that it can't, or it doesn't exactly function like we thought it was going to. And we get frustrated, and maybe we look through the documentation and we can't find an answer. And so we give up, or we get discouraged and we say, well, I just can't do that. HubSpot just can't do that. And when we kind of can stay humble in a sense, and we can ask for help, and this is comes back to engaging in the greater community, we may find out that we can do things in the tools that we didn't think that we could. We didn't think that there was an answer for, but you really have to lean into not knowing the answer and reaching out to support for that tool, reaching out to the greater community, reaching out to community forums, engaging in these places, and forming relationships with other, what I would call power users. So I have a handful of people that will come to me with questions when they don't know how to do something in HubSpot, or they have a question, or they're wondering if it can do something. Those are also the people that I go to when I have a question that I can't figure out an answer to. And I leverage those people because they have different experiences. The amazing thing about these big platforms is that every company uses them differently. They're not a one size fits all platform. And so you can learn so much from diving in and just seeking to find answers to your questions that you didn't know could be done, or you get inspiration from how other people are doing things. That's one of my favorite things about engaging in the greater community. And ultimately, what this really all comes down to for me is you have to own it. You have to take an ownership mentality. If you are the person that has convinced your organization to invest in this tool, if you're the person that's responsible for executing things in the tools, you have to decide at some point if you're going to be the subject matter expert on this tool at your organization, and you have to own it. You have to start creating those strategies outside of the tool and pushing your organization to do the same, pushing your organization to create goals, to think about bigger objectives, and really understand how the tool is going to help you execute that. And a little bit of it is going to be owning your own crazy, letting go of the fact that you're probably not going to be the most perfect, pristine case study ever. Maybe you will be, and that's awesome. But when you're owning these things for your organization, when you're setting those goals, you're creating those strategies, and then you're using your tools to execute them, and when you run into those issues, you're engaging in the greater community, and you're asking those around you for help and being a help to those around you, that's when you're going to find that real world success. Thanks so much. I think we're going to take some questions for the next few
Oh,
minutes.
thank you so much, Karina. That was really interesting and exciting to hear all your comments and ideas and experiences around this. That is so valuable. One question we got here is if you just want to boil it down to one single takeaway from this 30 minutes of presentation in this area, what we should do, what is that?
It's a good question. One single takeaway. I would say the ownership mentality is what will drive everything else. So if you're sitting back and saying, okay, well, my boss bought this tool and just told me to use it, just kind of tells me what to do, we're probably not going to have real success with whatever tool it is that you're using. But if you take an ownership mentality where even if you don't have all of the responsibility or the authority to do everything, but you say, I'm going to become the subject matter expert in this tool, I'm going to find the answers, I'm going to know everything that I possibly can, learn everything that I possibly can. Honestly, that's what helped me actually get to the point where I'm at, where now other people are coming to me and asking me about HubSpot, because at some point I decided to take ownership of that at Impact and say, I want to be the go-to person. When somebody has a question about this tool, I want to be the one that they come to answer it. And that will drive a lot of the other, ways that we end up using the tools and strategies that we develop and things like that.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Another question here. How do you know if you become stuck in the implementation swamp?
I would say if you're in it, when I think that there's an attitude or a discouragement of feeling like, I've been using this platform for a period of time. I had expectations of what it was going to be like. I thought when I started using it that we were going to be able to do all of these things and I was going to be easy and straightforward. And now I'm in this place where nothing is easy, nothing is straightforward, and I'm not really sure what to do next. And most of the time, because you're starting to ask that question, like, was this a bad idea? Was are we going to start wasting money on this tool because what we thought we were going to be able to do with it, we haven't been able to do with it up until this point, and we kind of just feel that tension of missed expectations.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great answer to that question. And along that way, that topic, how long should you be in the implementation phase in order to be there the right time?
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, that's probably not a question that I can give a great answer to, depending on the tool, right? So if we're talking about HubSpot and we're talking about, implementing just the marketing automation platform, typically the initial implementation is really just a couple of weeks to maybe 3 months. If you're a much larger organization, it depends on organization size, right? If you're a huge enterprise organization that's implementing a massive, massive tool, things are going to take longer. And it's not so much, necessarily a time thing, because some organizations move faster than others, some teams move faster than others. So it's not necessarily, how quickly are we getting through the implementation itself, but are we actually getting to the point where we're using the tools for meaningful things? So am I actually getting to the point where I'm using HubSpot to collect leads and track my website and engage with the leads that are coming in and nurture them? Whatever those goals are that we've set around how we want to use the tools, are we actually getting to a point where we're able to do that rather than we're stuck in some of the technical setup where we're not actually, doing anything valuable with them. We're just trying to figure out like how to get my subdomain set up and how to connect my email sending domain and things like that.
Yeah, good response to a vague question. Well, great. That was the last question we had, and I think everybody have got a really good view on how to make the most of sales and marketing software and make sure we don't get stuck in the swamp. So thank you so much, Karina, for all your insights here today, and thank you so much, everybody listening in. It was so great to have you here, and please connect to Karina at the link you see here in the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for coming.
Okay, thank you so much, Karina. Bye.